All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Create an account. So if you have not created your UC application account, no big deal. That's what we're here for today. You are not behind. In fact, you guys are well ahead of the game, given that you're coming to the first workshop. Review information that you need to have and need to know to begin the application. Talk about deadlines, explain. I'll kind of go over just some trouble areas. That's why we kind of dedicate the first hour to looking at different parts of the application that you may, find yourself getting into issues. Answer, of course, any questions, like I said, that you have, and then make sure we go over next steps so you know what is going to happen after today, and of course, after you submit your application. So just really quickly, first, I want to highlight a couple things about UC. You guys are all here because I'm assuming you're planning on applying no matter what, but there are some really great benefits to applying to the UC system. And first and foremost, I really want to point out the blue and gold opportunity, which essentially means if your family household income is less than $80,000 or less, and even really in between that 80 and 100 and maybe even above 100, usually free tuition is going to be guaranteed. For sure the 80,000 or less, but we've even seen it go much higher than that. So that's a really great reason to consider the UC system. You'll see as your admissions roll in and then your senior financial aid, you won't actually see it listed in your financial aid award as blue and gold, but somehow, some way, the UC will make sure your tuition is covered, whether that's through a Cal grant, a university grant, a Pell grant, scholarships, whatever they need to do, they'll make sure that tuition is covered. So that's a really, really great feature of the UC system that you'll have no matter what if you fall into those standards. The scholarship matching is built within the application. Another great thing about UC, love that they do that. So you don't have to apply for scholarships separate to each campus. Depending on the campuses you add in your application, it will let you match to different scholarships that that campus offers. And then just some, quick facts about the UC. More than half of California students who currently attend UC don't pay, like I was saying, the system-wide tuition and fees. They do a really good job of getting that covered. 71% of California UC undergrads receive some kind of grants and scholarships. The average award is nearly 18,000, which is, right there around a lot of the UC tuition. And then 45% of California students complete their UC degree with no student loan debt. So again, just really UC doing a good job of making sure that they are trying to provide the most financial aid to students, especially California and especially California community college students. So you can see that last line there. UCs are always putting California community college students as top priority. So you can see that really good percentage of those being admitted. So just some quick facts there. Things you will need for the application to get started today, or if you decide, to get started on tomorrow after you listen to everything you need to know. Copies of all transcripts. So it's really important that you have copies from any colleges that you have attended or plan to attend. So maybe you're planning on taking a class through another community college in the winter or spring. Obviously, you don't need to have a copy of that transcript, but you need to know, what you're planning on taking. So even if you didn't do well or you think that the college doesn't count or not transferable, you have to report any colleges ever attended. And this includes AP and IB exams. If you don't know what that is, then you probably didn't take it. Don't worry about it. You would know if you took an AP or IB exam. You don't need to know your UC transferable GPA, but it is nice to know because your UC GPA could be different than your other CSU or other transfer GPA because not all Hancock courses are UC transferable. It's good to know this just to see how competitive you are, or of course, if you had submitted a tag, the transfer admission guarantee, of course, you need to know if you're on track to meet that GPA. All UC transferable units completed, in progress, and planned. Again, just to make sure you're going to meet that minimum 60 that you need by the end of spring. And then your intended major, which could be different, right, for each UC campus. So making sure you know which major you're applying into for each of the UCs. And you'll notice UC, most of the campuses will ask if you want to select an alternate major. Not all of them will, but most of them. And so it's good to have a backup major. And when you're picking a backup major, make sure it's not within the same area as your intended major. And for example, if you're applying into mechanical engineering, you don't want your backup to be civil engineering, right? You want to go something completely different, math, physics, something that would relate, something that you could go into, still get to your intended career, but you want to be outside of that initial major, because if you're not admitted into that first major, the UC may look at you and think, hey, we like you, we like what we see, we just don't have room in this major, and they may offer you a spot in a different major. So always pick that possible alternate if it allows. You will at some point to finish the application. It's okay if you don't have it today, but you will need your 2024 income / tax information. And that's going to be important to put accurately on the application, because that will determine that fee waiver, which I'll talk about in a second. And notice it's 2024, not 25, that they're going to be looking at. And then for the UC specific and special to the UC application, you'll need a list of all activities, work experience, awards, honors, any military service. You'll see that's just a portion of the application that you'll have to fill out or can choose to fill out. Oops. Tips and tricks. So obviously things that we suggest that you do. So meeting with a counselor for a transfer evaluation. If you have not done that, highly recommend you try to do that sooner than later. I know appointments are pretty full, so it can be hard to get in, but we do have a lot of drop-ins every Tuesday. Usually we have drop-ins, and then when the schedule comes out, which will come out Monday, we will have drop-ins more, right? Like you'll see more drop-ins being offered from not just the transfer center, but in all the other counseling areas. Start early, which all of you are doing great, and know your application deadlines, which I will reiterate over and over, December 1st. For all UCs, always double check your entries. You just don't want to make mistakes. You don't want that to be a reason that you don't get admission or you are denied admission to a campus. So just be, really careful with your entries. And at the very least, it's not on this slide, but it will be on another slide. Have your application reviewed by a counselor. That way we'll double check, triple check for you and make sure there's no errors. It's a really good idea to research your universities now, if you haven't been already, to make sure you know what's required and desired. If it's a major that we would call selective, then you would want to make sure you know if you meet the minimum, right? Do you have everything that this campus is looking for or requiring to make you the most competitive? And then, like I had mentioned on the other slide, review the majors, because maybe your major could be called something different, right, at one campus versus another, or maybe one campus has a really unique major that you want to apply under, but you'll apply under a different major under 3 other campuses. So all the UCs have some, really, really unique majors. So I recommend, reviewing those, which you can get to from our website, the Transfer Center, or you can just Google UC majors, right, and you would find it. And there are 9 undergraduate UC campuses that you can apply to. Really important to know if your major or campus require a supplemental application, which is going to be rare. It'll be certain majors, usually in the arts or music, like the audition type major, theater. And then Berkeley usually has a supplemental for most of their majors, not all. So just knowing, is there going to be an extra application that you might have to do after this initial UC application? And then be prepared to pay $80 per UC application. But there is a fee waiver, like I mentioned a little bit ago, that is built into the application. Once you fill out your personal information and your financial information, it will determine if you qualify. If you do, you can get 4 UC applications for free. Same goes for CSU. If you're applying to CSU and you qualify, you can get 4 CSU applications for free. Highly recommended that you start or create a transfer file. I know this doesn't have to be like a paper, but if you're, old school and like the paper, print out, when you submit your application with the confirmation number. If you have any communications that you've been, with between campuses, or definitely your usernames and passwords for your applications, and then for your portals when you'll create those eventually. But at the very least, even within your email, right, have an email folder, and just anytime you get communications about your transfer process, especially from the universities, just kind of be throwing those into that email folder. Just easier access, right? So you're not having to search all the way through your email. If you're trying to find a communication from UC Santa Barbara or UCLA, you can easily find it in that folder. I mentioned it already. I will mention it many more times. Have your application reviewed by a counselor. It does not have to be by one of us, a transfer counselor in the transfer center, but any counselor on campus, make sure you have it reviewed before you submit. And I apologize, I didn't even mention, my name is Ashley Brackett, and I am a counselor in our University Transfer Center. So you can always come and ask me for help as well. When creating an account, if you have not done so already, it is recommended that you use a non-school related, so not your Hancock email. If you already did it and you used Hancock, totally fine. We just recommend it because we know a lot of students don't check their Hancock email. And of course, after you leave here, you won't be using your Hancock email anymore. So if you can, try to just use that personal email that you'll likely be checking more often. And then our UTC website, let me actually go there. You can scroll all the way down, counseling appointment, and then it will link schedule from here. It'll log you into your portal and then you can schedule, or you can go into your My Hancock portal and you can schedule directly from there as well. And that'll pull up any availability for any counselors that are available. If you can't get an appointment, you can, if you just have strictly Hancock related stuff, you can always do a app review on a drop-in. But right now we have till December 1st, you should be able to get in for an appointment and get that. Especially the UC, it can take a little longer. So I do recommend an appointment just because it has a little extra stuff. And if you're trying to get an application reviewed for CSU and UC, definitely schedule an appointment. You may even want to schedule two kind of separately. Okay, back on here. Other student support services, there's a lot of student support through the UC system, but some that we kind of highlight, the campus programs and support. If you're an undocumented student or veteran, make sure you know you're going to those individual sites. Let me just link here because you can see, you can link directly to some of the opportunities. So beyond campus, study abroad, which is great. There's a lot of really cool opportunities through the UC system. And then, like I was saying, if you're a student with disabilities, make sure you're getting connected with that early on. If you're a non-traditional student, you're returning student, current or former foster youth, obviously transfer, all of you, that'll take you, every UC should have a transfer center that you can connect with. And then if you're going to be applying to EOP, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, this just takes you to those links. And this is just right on the UC website where you'll actually end up going to apply if you haven't started already. So when you get into the application, this is the first area where a lot of students can mess up. You want to make sure, obviously, you're selecting transfer. You've graduated and you're enrolled in a college. And then it's really important that you check that junior level transfer, because a lot of students will accidentally select senior, actually is where they end up messing up, because maybe you have more units. You have 90 plus, or you will have 90 Hancock units by the end of spring. They're talking about, they're talking about your community college units, but the UC will max them at 70. So even if you have more than 70, you're still gonna be a junior level transfer, where they're looking at minimum 60 all the way through 89 units. But like I said, if you have 120 and they're all community college, no matter what, just make sure you're selecting that junior level, because you're gonna go in, right, starting at junior level. Sophomore level, if you accidentally select that, or maybe you will have less than 60, very few campuses will take at that sophomore lower division level. So you'll see programs kind of get eliminated and you won't see certain majors available. So that'll kind of be your first red flag if you accidentally select that, and you'll know, wait, maybe I did something with my entry, if you're not seeing certain majors being offered when you get into the system. So just a little check there, make sure you're good there. In the application, there's help everywhere. So there's help up at the top of the application, anywhere. I know it's a little blurry, but anywhere that has a little I button, you can click on it and it'll give you little blurbs about each of those sections that you're filling out. So a lot of times it may answer the question that you have. So kind of just click on that first if you have questions. And if you still aren't sure, you can go to help. Obviously, you can come ask us anytime. And if we don't know, we will definitely get you into contact with the UC system. Once you're in the application, you can navigate through that navigation bar. You could jump around if you want to. I highly recommend you kind of just go through step by step so you don't miss anything. the beauty of this application is it won't let you move on if you do. Like ultimately in the end, it'll have a little check boxes as you complete them, or check marks. So it won't let you submit and if you missed anything anyway. But you can, let's say you, for example, you don't have your financial information today. So you're going to come back and do that part. It may say, well, wait, there's errors. You need to stay, you know, on this page. You can continue working, or you can say, I'm going to skip this for now. I'm going to come back later. So you can always jump around in the application if you choose to do so. And then this is just like on the menu bar right here in the middle, you'll have, you can navigate through each section of the application. If you want to see it kind of at whole and you want to be able to scroll through your whole application, you can always go to this review and submit to kind of see it all at a big glance. And you can do that anytime because it will not make you submit right then, right? There's way more steps you have to go through to actually start, even if you did this start submission button, there are few more steps you have to go through to actually submit it. So don't be afraid to hit that review and submit, just so you can kind of, you know, scroll through and see the whole application and kind of make sure everything's looking good. For my citizenship and residency, the area where a lot of students tend to make mistakes is if you're an undocumented student, you want to select no country or no selection, which is, you know, you often would be like, well, I'm going to put my country of citizenship. But the reason we want you to do no select, well, I should clarify. If you are an AB, you qualify for AB 540 in-state tuition, right? If you're an out-of-state, even if you're an out-of-state resident, or you were, but you get in-state tuition because you're considered under AB 540, I'm sorry, actually that you would still be US, country of citizenship. So this would just be my undocumented students. This is to ensure that you're going to pay California fees, right? If you don't, and they think you're out of state, out of country, they're going to charge you those out of state fees, which are really expensive. So you just want to make sure here you do no selection if you are undocumented and you have AB 540 status. If you're unsure, come see any of us counselors and we can double check and verify that for you. Family size and income, this is the important area of the application that's going to determine that fee waiver. So make sure you only fill this out when you're sure of this information. Like, don't just guess. Make sure you have the right number because it, like I said, it will determine that fee waiver and you can't go back and change it after. Or you can, but then it won't change the fee waiver status. So you're going to report family size and income in this area. So this is where it will be. If you're dependent, you'll put your parents' information or the person that, if you're, you know, have split families, whatever, the person that you live with. Independent would only be if you're married, if you have children of your own, if you're foster youth, ward of the court, if you're military. If you can't say yes to any of that, then you would be considered, oh, I'm sorry. And then if you were, if you're 24 or you will be 24 by the end of 2026, then when you start the UC, then you can be independent if you're in that range. If you can not say yes to any of that, if all of that is a no, you will have to report your parents' information. So I know that can be frustrating sometimes because maybe you're living on your own, you're supporting yourself, but unfortunately, based on federal guidelines, until you're the age of 24, they want your parents' information for financial aid reasons. It is just federal guidelines. If you have questions about that, definitely let us know. Once you get into, so you'll get through the about you, and then it'll be campuses and majors. This is where you'll start selecting the UCs that you want, and it will let you know if you qualify for that UC fee waiver before you even start, as long as you filled out the family income and that area. And then it'll show you 4 campuses for free and your estimated cost would be 0. If you add 5 UCs, for example, obviously then you'll see this estimated cost go to 80, right? However many applications outside of the fee waivers. Well, nothing else on this. If you didn't qualify and you think you should have qualified, you would actually have to reach out individually to each campus. Oh, and this is a little outdated. This was back when it was 70. It is actually 80. You would have to individually contact the campuses and see if you can appeal through them for that fee waiver. If you're really in a bind, talk to one of us. We may have some fee waivers that we can give out to certain students who meet the qualifications, but maybe on here just kind of were cut short. If you're applying to UC San Diego, they have a unique, they're just unique in this way. They have different colleges within their university, which can be confusing. It does not mean that you're picking like colleges based on your major. You can have any major. See, college assignments are not based on major. You can access any major within each college. Each college just has its own like philosophy, learning philosophy, teaching philosophy, and graduation requirements, honestly. So you may, if you pick one college, it may have like an extra reading or writing class that you have to take or assignment. One may have a foreign language requirement that another doesn't, and they all kind of have their own different activities within each college. So San Diego will want you to rank your top 4. It doesn't guarantee that you'll get into your top 1, but it just kind of helps them place you based on your interests. So you can read. I recommend reading up on each of the colleges. There are more than 4, but it just wants you to, there's 8, but it just wants you to rank your top 4. So take time to review that. You actually can select no if you don't want it, if you don't care and whatever. Otherwise, yes, and then it'll pull down all the options and you can read about them. So that is just for UC San Diego. When you get to the academic history portion, this is really important for those of you who have already created a UC TAP, Transfer Admission Planner. You'll be able to log into that TAP login ID and email address, and then it will pull over everything, all the coursework that you entered there. So it's great because it won't make you re-enter all of that, right? So if you did the tag, the TAP, this is where you'll be able to log into that. Or if you're still working in there, finish up in there and then come do this and pull it over. You can actually pull it over multiple times. If you make, changes in your TAP, you can come back and do it again. Do make sure that when you're creating the account, you want to use the same email address for both so they connect. I think that's all I want to say about that. If you didn't create one, not a big deal. You're just going to move on past this page and then you'll start entering your academic history on your own. When entering academic history, it gives you all these grade codes. Well, you'll be able to, you'll select, you can see here, you would select the area of your class. So it's accounting, business, whatever it is. It'll have a drop-down menu, and then you'll literally just check box because you're going to enter your coursework from your transcript, right? From the very first semester you started with Hancock, even if that was in high school, all the way through spring, if you're taking classes with us this next spring. You're going to basically take your transcript and enter it identical, how it looks, whether the classes transfer or they don't, whether you got good grades or bad grades, W's, whatever it was, you're going to enter everything. So if it's UC transferable, it'll populate on here. You'll select it, give it the grade that you got, and move on. If it's not on the list, you can enter, you'll see it, I don't see my courses at the bottom of the page, and then you'll manually enter it. Every once in a while, a class is UC transferable. It's just not showing up, and just manually enter it, and then UC would determine, how they're going to count it. You can see here there's a couple grade codes that you'll want to use for special situations. If you academically renewed a D or F grade already, like it's already showing on your transcript, you would select AR for the grade instead of D or F. Different than the CSU application, if you got a D or F in a class and then later repeated it, you actually will put that first D or F, and then when you go to add the new grade when you got it, it will ask, are you wanting this to repeat, your previous D or F grade? If you're unsure what academic renewal is and you think that's something you might want to do, come talk to one of us counselors and we can see if you qualify, if you have some D's or F grades on there that you want to alleviate potentially. Excuse withdrawal, that could be another one that if you've done that. Otherwise, it's going to be just the regular withdrawal, the WI. We don't have WF at Hancock. If you attended other colleges, maybe that would be there. But here at Hancock, it'll just be WI. If you took a class pass, no pass, pass or credit, no credit, that's what you could put in. Classes that you're in for this fall, you'll put the IP. It'll automatically put it. Planned, when you do winter, spring, it'll automatically put those in. So just make sure you enter everything. If you took like an Algebra 2, Algebra 1, the Prod 301 that a lot of high school students took back in high school, you'll have to manually enter those because they're not UC transferable. So just make sure you don't leave anything off of entering. This is what I was talking about if you're entering a repeated course. If you enter that first term when you got the F, But later, when you add it that you passed the class or you got it with a different grade, here this one was a D, you're saying I'm saying I repeated that previous F grade. This is where, if those of you who have started the Cal State application, it's very different than how you reported on the Cal State. So that's all that is reminding you. You also don't need to enter any non-credit or like the math lab, the writing center, don't put that. It's only credit classes. Okay. I mentioned scholarships are built within the application. So depending on the UCs that you select at the beginning, it will have a whole list. You can expand all of it. I recommend taking your time reading through. It's not like it's a lot. It's just going to be little lines like you're a transfer student or your parents were affiliated with this program. Whatever kind of donors, scholarships they offer within those campuses, you can just check the box if you think it's anywhere remotely something that you might qualify for. And then they're going to utilize your personal insight questions, which we'll get to, we'll talk about, to help decide if you have earned, or maybe just your grades, right? If you've earned one of those scholarships. You also do have to file that FAFSA or DREAM Act to make sure that if you do get awarded a scholarship, you have to have that filed, just FYI. EOP, which is just like our EOPS program here at Hancock. It's for first generation college students. It'll be based on income, so you have to qualify income wise. And then obviously if you're educationally disadvantaged, first in your family to go to college, just check that box. And this is also different than the CSU application. You'll fill out, it's just a really like small box that just statement why you're interested in joining that program. It is a great program. You can read about it if you explore the programs there. If you think you might qualify, apply. It's going to give you extra resources, extra help at the UC. And then they've added this year, I noticed this is new, UC Foster Youth Program. So if you're in that situation, definitely check that box, share why you're interested, and then that way they can put you in for the application for those two programs. Activities and awards. So this is going to be your next. So, and also in academic history, but right below that, if you have any AP or IB scores, you'll enter those. That's going to be especially important if you're using any English or math AP for the required courses, right, for UC admissions. But only enter them if you passed, right, any passing scores. Activities and awards, you can enter up to 20 different activities and awards. You can see the options here. It can be an award or honor, an educational preparation program like EOPS, MESA, right? Something like that. Any extracurricular activities, volunteer community service, and work experience. We understand as transfer students, especially some of you, maybe this is your first year and you're already transferring out. Or maybe you've been here 2 years, this is your second year, you haven't had a lot of time to do much. It's okay. This is not a huge deal for transfer students. It is just another way for the UCs to get to know you, get to know about you. I would highly recommend adding anything that's gonna, assist with your major. Like if there's something that you've been doing or you are doing that's related to your major or shows experience, definitely put that in here, or just anything unique that might set you apart from other campuses. But if you're really racking your brain, like I just don't have anything post high school, or all I've been doing is working, great, put the work experience in. Or if you just feel like, there's not much, it's okay. You don't have to have a ton here. You don't have to have anything if you don't. But definitely, if you want to put the work experience in, if you're doing that, so it just shows, you're a working student. That's important. We do suggest that you focus primarily on post-high school. However, if there's something, especially if you're just 1 year out of high school, if there's something from high school that you really think, again, highlights who you are, leads, lends well to your major, it's really just something that you want them to know about you, go ahead and add it. It's not the end of the world if you add something in high school. They're just kind of looking more right at that current stuff. So you want to try to focus more on the current. So personal insight questions. Everybody will have to answer these questions no matter what UCs you're applying to. Keep in mind your responses go to all the UCs. So you don't want to write in there, my dream school is UCLA, because UC Santa Barbara is going to see that, right? So these should be very broad in nature and not specific to a campus. Obviously start early because you want to give them, good thought and really have time to review them and have them checked over. There is a PIQ document for transfer students. me pull this up. We have them printed in the Transfer Center too, so you can grab one. And it's a really helpful tool to just help you start to brainstorm. It goes over kind of the basics about it, talks about each of the questions, which I'll go into detail in a second. But then it gives you some tips or things to think about for each of the questions. So that's a really helpful tool. I highly recommend that you utilize that. Write persuasively with examples, just like you would learn in, you're taught in your English classes. You want to give examples to your writing. This is like, and the same with the using the I and my statements, like, writing about, this is about you. Do it from your perspective. This is your interview, right? This is the only way the UC can get to know you beyond your grades that you're putting in there and those, activities and work experience. So think of this as the way that they would interview you if they were sitting with you in person. So just take it in that way. I will say, honestly, not every UC campus is going to use these for the admissions purposes for transfer students. Some just want to see, do you meet the minimums? Do you have the major prep? Do you have the GPA? Do you have the 60 units? They may only go to these questions if they have a question about you, or maybe you're borderline, there's something they want to learn more about you. Honestly, there's some of them that will just do that. And then you have a few other ones, for sure, UCLA, UC Berkeley, I'm blanking on the third one, that will definitely use this in their holistic view, right, of their holistic process of admitting you. So take them seriously, but don't stress about them. They're only one aspect of your application. Highly recommend type them into a Word document and then copy paste them over, because the application will time out on you. So you just want to have them good to go and then copy paste them over. They don't want any special characters, nothing like that. You can only go between 250 and 350 words. So stay within that range. And then that way you can kind of check your word count and then copy them over. Obviously, proofread. And then we recommend you have at least 3 people review them. Utilize the Writing Center. They have already told us they're happy to help with these. Obviously, you can come have any of us check them over if you want to, but have people in your life, people who know you really well. Maybe you have an instructor that you trust, that you want to check them over. And the Writing Center is great for someone who doesn't know you, right? So then that could be somebody who's looking at them from like this perspective if it was the UC reading them. So they can kind of look at, how your writing is that way. So those are just some tips there. The questions, you'll have one required question. Please describe how you've prepared for your intended major, including your readiness to succeed in your upper division courses once you enroll at the university. This is specific to transfer students. You won't see this, right, for freshmen. That is because you're going in at junior standing, so they want to know that you are ready to hit the ground running and you are ready because you're going to go full blown into your major, right? Your junior and senior year primarily is going to be everything in your major because you've done all your lower division with us. You've done your general ed most likely. So this is a really important question, and oftentimes students will tend to just start writing like, well, these are the classes, that I've taken. They can see that, right? They can see that on the application. You really want to talk about more, are there any classes you've taken that have led you to be interested in this major? Or they really pushed you, in one way or the other, or have prepared you? Talk about classes and how they've impacted your reason for, choosing this major. Or especially things outside of the classroom. Are there any things you've done outside of the classroom that have also prepared you or brought you to have interest in this major? And just, now I'm ready, to go full blown. And you can also in this question, of course, talk a little bit about how this intended major plans to lead to what your, end goal is, right? Career goal. You can definitely put that in there. Then you'll get to choose 3 additional questions from 7 options. So one is about leadership. You can see that one here, describing an example of your leadership. And there are no wrong or right questions to choose here. You just want to choose what you feel like you can best answer, and that's going to give them the most insight into who you are. So read through all the questions, maybe kind of brainstorm, like I said, some ideas for each, and then find the one that's going to best fit you. Second option is every person has a creative side, so it can be expressed in many ways. Don't think of this too literally. It does not have to be just artistic abilities. Maybe there's a unique idea you came up with and you've implemented it in your life or in your community. Something original, innovative thinking, right? So if you have a creative side, you could talk about that. Number 3, what would you say is your greatest talent or skill? Again, this could be very broad. And then how you developed and demonstrated that talent over time. The 4th option, describe how you have taken advantage of a significant educational opportunity or worked to overcome an educational barrier you have faced. This could be a lot of our students, right? Being a transfer student comes with a lot coming at you and other life things coming at you. So this could be taking advantage of an educational opportunity, maybe some program you got involved with, or the tutoring side of things, or was there anything, and you probably all have some kind of barriers that you've dealt with, and then how have you overcome that? So that is the 4th option. The 5th one, describe the most significant challenge you have faced, which could be similar, right, to that other one, and the steps you have taken to overcome this challenge. How has this challenge affected your academic achievement? Also be careful that you're not, picking 2 and then giving kind of similar or same answers. You want to make sure, right, each question is going to tell a different story, right, about you. So be careful of that, because I know some of these you could have similar things that you talk about. You really want them to get different views. And also make sure you don't use any to like continue with maybe you felt like you needed more than 350 words. Make sure you don't, continue on into the next one. Number 6 option, what have you done to make your school or community a better place? And 7 can be a really difficult one, or it can be a really great one that can give you, sky's the limit, right? What you can talk about. Beyond what has already been shared in your application, what do you believe makes you a strong candidate for admissions to the University of California? Again, these are going to be general they're going to go to all your UCs, not just one individual. So those are all your options. Take your time to kind of go through them, brainstorm, and then come up with your 3. Important deadlines and notes. Like I said, the application is due by December 1st for all the UCs. Some may end up extending that deadline, but don't count on it. So plan on having it in by then. We highly recommend you try to get it done by the middle of November, before Thanksgiving break, so it's something you don't have to think about. Plan to complete your UC academic update, the TAU, in January. So as soon as you'll submit by December 1st, you'll get confirmation, right, from the campuses. Thanks for applying. Here's your next steps, yada, yada. In January, no matter what, whether you're taking classes in the spring or not, you'll go in, or whether you're taking classes now, update your grades or update your application, and then make any changes you need to for your spring schedule. Priority filing for that is January 31st, although you can still make updates after that. Don't send transcripts unless they're requested. In my experience, most of the UCs do not want them until you've been admitted. So it's good because you don't have to waste money, ordering those and sending them. As soon as you get admitted or as soon as they request them, make sure you send transcripts from all your universities attended. Check your email regularly and often. Can't stress this enough. You will, like I said, start receiving communication from your campuses, especially if you're applying to multiple. It can get overwhelming. There can be a lot of different communications coming through. So just stay organized, stay on top of those. Check your portals, because usually you'll create a portal for most campuses after you apply, and you'll be checking that for any kind of updates, to-do lists. And then we'll be sending, right, the transfer center, any events, we may have a university rep last minute decides, that they're going to come to campus. So keep an eye out for emails from us from the transfer center. And then if you completed a UC tag application in September, and it's funny here, it says you may receive communication by November 15th, because unfortunately not all of them do. Majority of the campuses that participate in tag will send you like your tag has been approved by November 15th. Some campuses like Santa Barbara won't send you anything. So they'll just say, great, thanks for the tag, and you'll get your admission decision in spring. Obviously, if you meet the tag requirements, you're going to have that guarantee. So you can always wait if you're waiting to see if you got it approved, like from one of the other campuses, and then submit your application after you get that approval if you're waiting on that, especially because applications are expensive, $80 a pop. Next steps after you apply, and you can start doing this one now, apply for financial aid. It is open, so you can do your FAFSA or DREAM Act. You want to get that in by the priority filing deadline. I would say get it in by the end of February. That should be your goal. And remember, that's going to be looking at your 2024 taxes. We know the scholarships are embedded and built within this application, but continue to look for other scholarships, especially the Hancock Foundation Scholarship that'll open next month in November, and it usually closes by early to mid-February. If you're enrolled in 6 units a minimum 6 units this semester, and you will be in at least 6 in the spring, and you have a 3.0 GPA, you can apply, and you should apply. If you are awarded any of those scholarships, which you can get more than one, you will be invited to the banquet in May, and then that money you can use at the university. Housing, super important to start looking into that now. You don't want to miss any deadlines. A lot of them won't be until you're admitted that you apply, but sometimes they can have early, access. Always leave on-campus housing as an option. Maybe you're not sure because you don't know how much it's going to cost or what your financial aid is going to be. Well, just apply, right? Or leave it open as an option, add it in your FAFSA or wherever it asks you, so that it can be left as an option. Also, because most of the UCs have guaranteed maybe on campus, but guaranteed housing for at least the first year, some of them the second year for transfer students. Another perk to the UC system. Reminder, you'll complete that transfer academic update in January. And then, like I said, most universities, once you've applied, they will send you a link to create a portal, and then, or some will wait till you've been admitted, but most of them it'll be after you apply. And then you'll have your individual portal for each of those universities, just like your My Hancock portal. And that's where you'll be logging in to see any updates, to-do lists, what comes next, applications right for housing, maybe scholarship opportunities if there's other ones, whatever it might be. That portal will be your access. And then obviously eventually once you are admitted and you pick a campus, you'll register for your orientation. So portals are really important. Save the date for 2 really great workshops coming up in November. We'll have the financial aid at the university. So this is where we'll talk about aid at the university level. We'll repeat both of these in the spring again. The financial aid one is really good to attend in the spring because by then you've been admitted and usually you kind of know what financial aid is being offered to you, or it's sitting there and we can help you make sense of it. Still good to attend now. And then the Show Me the Scholarships workshop, we'll go over even more in detail, more tips and help on applying for scholarships. So that one will be November 18th. And then our university fair, that's when all the universities, many universities will be here on our campus. That'll be the end of this month, Tuesday, October 28th, between 10:30 and 1 in the Commons. And that's when you can go around and talk to the different reps that are tabling. It'll be a fun day, activities and food. So that's a good day. Okay, I think we're at the end. If you don't have an account, you'll go to apply.universityofcalifornia.edu to get started.